I am Daniel, I am the medical director of the veterinary clinic AutoVet. And in this opportunity we are going to talk about tips when we are first-time parents. One of the recommendations when we acquire a pet, be it felines or canines, the first tip is not to give milk, be it lactose-free or whole. The ideal is to give them water. Water will, not to live with this supply. Sometimes many of the parents say that they drink enough water. We must take into account that they come from a trance of lactation to a phase of concentrate. They have to consume enough water. Point number 2 is to provide the corresponding ration of each concentrate that we are giving, whether it is package A, B, or C. The ideal is to look at each package, in any of the presentations, a small table where it is recommended, the supply that we should really give him, independently by weight, by grammage. We must observe according to these characteristics. Give him the corresponding supply. How many times we can give it in puppy stage? It depends on literature or medical criteria concept. But the ideal is to give it at least 3 times a day, in the morning, at noon, and at night. We must also have a very important tip to be preventive in the vaccination part. Do not expose pets to the environment, parks, grass, street, without having previously all the vaccination schedule. The deworming plan is fundamental. Ideally also in the puppy stage it can be started from 15 days of birth. Going to the veterinarian is important because there are also characteristics of each presentation, where we must take into account. How much is the supply that we must give to each pet? We must weigh it, we must examine it, we must value it. We must take physiological constants and according to this give medical recommendations. Recommendations of the deworming and the supply we want to. There are several criteria. It can be monthly, every 3 months, and after that, give preventive recommendations during all their years of life. In terms of nutrition, we must keep in mind that there are varieties or types of concentrate. The ideal is to play and look for the best protein quality that has this type of concentrates. There are several brands, or 2 branches, which are the premium or super premium branch, where they obviously come with nutritional characteristics. The ideal is to seek the best nutrition for each of your pets. There are the famous, apart from the concentrates that we all know, there are nowadays the famous barf diets, the pre-cooked diets, the diets not in concentrate. Really the recommendation nowadays, the boom in this veterinary market, exists. The ideal is always that it is oriented or supervised by a veterinarian, yes. The ideal is that it is oriented. And we have to take into account that if we make determinations about the supply of this type of nutrition, it has to be from an origin or from a company with all the certificates that a food obviously has to have. Another very important tip is that as first-time parents, we want to have a lot of toys for our pets to have fun day by day at home. That is very important. We have to take into account what is part 1 of the breed of the pet. The size is very important, the size of the pet. One of the most important tips is that depending on the size or the breed, we should buy this type of toys or artifacts again to stimulate the bite. Because every patient or every baby has an agitated bite. They bite our hands, the objects in the house, the furniture, the rugs, the tennis shoes. Right. So we buy this type of toys, so the tip here is, please do not depend on the breed. It is also to double the size of the mouth. With what objective? To avoid that when they are going to start biting these toys, they are not going to be ingested, and to become unfortunate foreign bodies, which obviously leads to future surgical processes, which are foreign bodies at intestinal level. It is also important that all of us who acquire pets obviously become a special member of the family, and we want to take them to every trip we make. Here the tip is to be preventive in 1. Apply or provide the famous anti-flea and tick products. Regardless of whether we go to hot or cold land, nowadays, due to environmental changes, there is a proliferation of ticks. And that can also lead to many pathologies in dogs, and even kittens, so here please, be very conscious to be preventive in the supply of this type of medicines. One of the great joys of children is to acquire a pet, but we must be very aware and very responsible parents to guide the children that please. To handle a pet so young, we must be aware of that, to know how to handle, to know how to give them obviously a lot of recommendation not to lift the puppy pet so often, not to squeeze, not to lift, not to handle the pet strongly. We must be very aware of it, guide them a lot, knowing that it is a great joy for children to have a member of these. Characteristics at home. The great advantage of acquiring these pets for the children is that it fills them or favors them to generate discipline in them, having a very nice responsibility, which is the care, feeding them, giving them water, taking them out when it is appropriate to take them out to do their needs, to generate a discipline as such. It is important to be clear about something. Until when does my pet stop being a puppy? The ideal is from birth. Those are myths of grandma sometimes that we multiply by so many years to really know the age in humans. No, I catalogued it as my criterion obviously from birth, until 12 months of age as a puppy, and after 12 months of age onwards and begins its adult stage. Another tip is, that comes a lot in the casuistry of the day-to-day, the questions of you is, "Doctor, I have to spay and neuter my pet." Ideally, it should be a rule or an obligation to have it done. No. What we handle is prevention. Both in females and males, right, at a future age, right. To avoid pathologies such as mammary gland tumors, the famous pyometra, prostate processes in males, prostatic hyperplasia, prostatic tumors, prostatic cysts, so it is suddenly to avoid, if this type of surgical procedures were to be done, to avoid pathologies in the future. When is it possible? The ideal is that these types of pets are obviously physically or phenotypically in good condition to enter an operating room, and knowing that internally they can also be brought to an anesthetic level. The ideal is, before 6 months, and obviously if we go beyond 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, the ideal is that they are obviously in perfect physical, clinical and laboratory conditions. One of our little headaches when the pet comes to our house is that it does its needs in places where we do not want it to do. That is a routine and patience, where we have to start to orient ourselves. Here the theme is to be very judicious. I will take a little bit, play quickly with the completion of the vaccination scheme, and start to make the routine. What I mean, before the vaccine and after the vaccine. Before the vaccine we have to play with the environment where they live, in this case the apartment, house, yard, right, is to play. There are in the veterinary market, mats, with products that you can get to enter this map, and they are sniffing and are coming to these sites and begin to generate obviously already a routine of where they should do. If we observe that they do it in places where we do not want them to do, the ideal is to start obviously to play with a training, to guide them, to reprimand them very gently, and we take them to where we want them to really do their needs. That becomes routine, and as time goes by, they acquire that routine, and they start to do where we want them to do. After the vaccinations, as if we really did the vaccination schedule, we can take them outdoors, to the parks, to the grass and so on. We can take them out in the morning, ideally for half an hour, so that they will obviously acquire that routine, and they will be doing their needs, and you want them to do it outside the apartment house. Well, thank you very much. I hope these tips have been very useful to all of us who acquired these beautiful feline or canine pets. Please, preventive health. Do not stop going to your veterinarians. Please, love them, protect them. They are love this kind of pets, which obviously make us happy in our homes day by day. Remember, you can reach us on our social networks, on Instagram, on Facebook, on our website, and we will be happy to assist you.